I've had the Apple Vision Pro for 72 hours and I've used it extensively, and I can say it is absolutely incredible. But after using it for so much time already, I've noticed a lot of flaws. So, should you buy this? Is it worth nearly $4,000? I'm going to tell you everything I've noticed about this device. So, I'm going to break this down into a few categories. The first one being the purchase experience. Now, when I woke up Friday morning, I was not planning on purchasing an Apple Vision Pro. I thought I could wait. I wanted to see what the other reviews said, but when I started seeing everybody getting their Apple Vision Pro, I had extreme FOMO and I just had to get it. And so I didn't pre-order it. I simply drove over to my local Apple store, walked in. They said I had to wait about 30 minutes. I waited, and then somebody helped me. Now, the purchasing experience was phenomenal. The store wasn't crowded. They brought me in. Somebody sat me down and immediately scanned my face to get the fitting for the Apple Vision Pro. And I actually recommend going and picking it up in store because I had scanned my face using my own phone at home. And then when I went into the store, they scanned it again and actually got different measurements. I had to try a couple on to find one that fit. And then when you're about to do the demo, they actually bring you out a demo Apple Vision Pro on this wooden platter thing. And it looks like fine dining. Somebody is bringing you this thing and it just screams polish. Then they gave you a demo, and the demo was just so polished. Not just the demo in the Apple Vision Pro and what you're experiencing, but the Apple employee helping you as well. They even started with telling me how to pick it up. They told me to use my fingers and pick it up like this, one hand on the back, and then put it over my head like that. And as soon as I put it on, the person helping me was actually reading from a script. And it was super obvious she was reading from a script, but she did great. And my first experience with the Apple Vision Pro, I was completely blown away. This is before I started noticing all the flaws. The first thing you notice is it is really immersive. And they walk you through how to use it with the pinching, the dragging. They show you a few immersive videos. They show you how to look at photos. So the whole experience took about 30 minutes. Then I went home, I set it up, and now let's talk about all the good and all the bad. So first, let's talk about usability. It is so simple to use. It is so intuitive. When you first get into the Vision environment, you're greeted by a set of apps, and then when you start opening them, windows essentially float right in front of you. And the way that you can move them around by dragging further away from you, more towards you, you can flick up, down. You can close windows by looking at them. The windows, when you put them somewhere, they stay exactly there. Even if you get up, walk around to the other side of them, you can see the other side. I mean, it is absolutely stunning. And the vision tracking is about 99% accurate for me. And that is really impressive for a first version of a product. I am beyond impressed by how accurate and how easy it is to just look at something and tap. And this motion of just tapping, as long as your hands are in front of you, so as long as they're not back here, it will see your hands. It works really well. But one thing I haven't seen a lot of people talking about is how quickly you can put it on and get started. Not from scratch, but let's say you've already set it all up and you're ready to go. It actually takes a good bit of time to put it on, turn on, and get started. So let's look at this. So I have this case, and yes, I'll talk about this case. I keep it in the case because this is a very expensive tool. I have to open up the case. I take the Apple Vision Pro out. Then it comes with this little hood on it, and you could take this off like so. So just like that. So then you have to take that off, and then you have to plug it in like so. Put this little thing in there, and then you rotate it. And it gets easier, but the first few times I actually struggled with it. Then once you do that, you put it on. Now, after you put it on, it takes about 30 seconds for you to actually start seeing through it. So you're sitting there with it on and you're in complete black. So this isn't like your phone where you can just take it out, look at it quickly, open it up, scan your face, and you're off texting somebody, opening emails. It's not that fast. And even for my laptop, I just take my laptop, I open it, and everything is right there. And not only that, every single time that you open the Apple Vision Pro, every single time you turn it on, you're starting from scratch. None of your previous windows are still there. I don't know why they would have done that. What I want is to put it on, and then all of my windows are exactly where I had left them in spatial space. So I think that's actually one huge barrier to using this more frequently, is the fact that it does take so long to turn on and actually get into the environment. Now let's talk about typing. There are a few different ways to type. The main way is you look at an input box, you select it by tapping, and then a little keyboard comes up right in front of your eyes. You look at each key, and for each key, you're going to be tapping. And it works, and you're pretty fast with it, but nowhere near as fast as typing. The second way is the keyboard. You can actually pretend to just push each button, and there's no tactile feedback, so it's a little awkward. And the last way, the best way, is to have a physical keyboard. And this works incredibly well. You look at an input box, you tap, and then you could just start typing. Now, there are some flaws with this. If you're using the keyboard and you're in one of their immersive environments, you can see your hands just fine, but you can't see the keyboard. So you're putting your hands down, you're trying to fumble around to feel where the home keys are, and then you can start typing. Now, if you can type without looking at the keyboard, you're fine, but if you can't really use a keyboard. And speaking of being able to see devices, you can't see your phone. So let's say you're in an immersive environment and you hold your phone up, you cannot see it at all. And even if you're not in an immersive environment, if you're in pass-through mode and you're looking at it, when you go to open up your phone, it can't see your face. So you actually have to wait, type in your password, and then open it up every single time. It's actually quite frustrating. It seems like it would be pretty straightforward to be able to say, if I'm wearing the Apple Vision Pro, go ahead and unlock this automatically, just like it does with the Apple Watch. All right, now let me talk about how it feels to actually have it on. When you first put it on, they give you this awesome solo band right here, and it looks really cool as opposed to every other VR headset, which typically has another strap going across the head. But there's a reason that all of those other VR headsets actually have that additional strap across the head. It's because when I put this on, I have to tighten it right here, and I tighten it so that I don't see any light coming through, but eventually the front of it is so heavy, I have so much pressure above my eyebrows right there and below my eyes right there. It's so much pressure that I'm constantly adjusting where this is on the back of my head to make it more comfortable. And that's also why they provide you with this kind of band. And this is the one where one goes over your head. Now, switching between them is super easy. All you do is you pull this little strap, it snaps out, and then you can put the other one on. So it takes 2 seconds to do. Very, very simple. This is extremely intuitive. And when you're wearing this, it definitely relieves a lot of the pressure on your face, and you're able to use it for much more extended periods of time. And last, 2 big problems with VR headsets to date have been eye strain and getting nauseous by being in that environment for too long. And I can say I have not experienced either of those things with the Apple Vision Pro. I have had 0 eye strain, and I have not gotten sick once while using it. And I've probably been in there, the longest period was about an hour and a half. So now let's talk about apps. There are 600 native Apple Vision Pro apps, and then there are a ton of other ones where they're essentially just iPad apps, but you can use them within the environment. And those work great as well. But there are some key apps missing, and it is really annoying. So Netflix is missing, Spotify is missing, Gmail is missing, YouTube is missing, and Chrome isn't available either. And this is all because they don't want to continue to give Apple 30% of their revenue by being on another one of their platforms. And so there are workarounds to it, and you can still use Gmail and YouTube through Safari. I actually have an app that was built specifically as a YouTube replacement, and it is native to Apple Vision Pro, and it works really well. And then there are a bunch of games, but the games are super limited as well. This kind of feels like what it felt like shortly after the iPad came out, where there was a ton of apps for the iPhone and only a few native ones for the iPad. And the ones that were for the iPad were pretty basic. You know, you get Cut the Rope, you get Fruit Ninja, but nothing really special. There are no AAA titles. There are no games that I've come to love on my iPhone, for example. But speaking of apps, FaceTime is incredible. Now, I haven't actually FaceTimed with somebody else using the Apple Vision Pro, so I don't actually know how that looks, but I've FaceTimed people who are using their phone, and they appear huge right in front of my face, and it is super easy to use. And not only that, one cool thing is I can actually show them what I'm looking at. So there's a mode where I can just show them and show off what it's like to be in the Apple Vision Pro. So they're looking at me through their phone, but I'm showing them what I'm looking at versus just my persona. And speaking of the persona, it works fine. There's definitely uncanny valley there, but they call it a beta product, and I see why they do. But the potential is what I really want to emphasize. It is so clear to me, at least, that this is the future of computing. It is so intuitive and obvious, and there are so many benefits. And once developers get in there and really start building natively for this computing platform, the Apple Vision Pro is going to increase in value tremendously. Now let's talk about immersion. The first time I put on the Apple Vision Pro and went through the demo in store, I was completely blown away. It was better than any other VR headset that I had played with to date. And I don't have a ton of experience with VR headsets, but I've used the Sony one, I've used the Quest, but not for extensive periods of time. And one of the most amazing things is their environments. So they come with about a handful of very immersive environments where if you use the crown at the top of the Apple Vision Pro, you can dial in how immersive it is, and it kind of just wraps around you with this really cool effect. And from within that environment, you can set up all of your windows. You can be overlooking Joshua Tree, or you can be on the moon, and it really is very, very cool, especially if you're trying to focus. And this was a little surprising to me. I'm sitting in my office and I have my Apple Vision Pro on, I'm getting work done, and then all of a sudden I can just tune everything out by putting on the immersive environment. But now let's talk about pass-through, because this was really one of the distinguishing features when the Apple Vision Pro was being promoted before it came out. If you saw their commercials, you would think the fidelity on pass-through was flawless, and I can say this was the biggest letdown for me. When you're in pass-through mode, you're seeing a lot of blurriness. As you're moving your head, you definitely see little waves, you see color variations. It is not clean whatsoever. But on that same note, anything that is fully rendered by the device, so all the windows, the movies, flawless. I cannot emphasize that more. It is completely flawless. You do not see a pixel. They do not move. They're gorgeous. But the pass-through leaves something to be desired. And I think that's actually going to get better with software updates, and certainly when they come out with future versions of the Apple Vision Pro. One thing that it struggles with is low light conditions during pass-through. So if there's not a lot of light, you see a lot of noise, and it's almost dizzying. So you really have to be in a really well-lit environment to use pass-through. And then there's hand occlusion. So one of the first things you do when you're setting up your Apple Vision Pro is you put your hands in front of you like that, it scans it, and then it does really impressive occlusion. It's far from perfect. You definitely get these little lines around your hand as it's trying to figure out what part of your hand is overlapping on top of the actual UI elements in the environment. But it does it pretty well. And one really cool thing is if you look at your hand in daylight through the Apple Vision Pro, it's well lit. And then if you turn it to night mode, all of a sudden it's dark. And I thought that was just a really cool touch. And then we have a handful of immersive video demos. So there's one of Alicia Keys in a studio singing to you, and that one is mind-blowing. It looks like she is literally right in front of your face singing directly to you in a studio environment. There's another one where you're watching a tightrope walker, another one where you're seeing dinosaurs run around. Those are incredible. But they're only 180 degrees of vision. So if you look up and to your right, you just see black behind you. I don't really understand why they wouldn't have done a complete 360, but I'm sure the technology to record these fully immersive environments is very expensive and very high end, and maybe it doesn't exist yet, but I have to assume it does. So what I would love to see is these immersive videos, but to be full 360 degrees around me, because it definitely breaks the immersion when you can look to your right and you see the cutoff of the video. Now let's talk about use cases. What is the Apple Vision actually used for? So I think the most obvious use case is content consumption. It is amazing to watch a movie in. When I first got it, I was watching some TV shows, I was watching some movies, and then I took it off, and then I watched my 65-inch TV, and it was like watching a black and white tube television. It was completely underwhelming after I took that off. I mean, with one button, you can have a movie theater-sized screen right in front of you, overlooking a lake. And it truly is just an absolute beast at consuming movies and video. And not only that, all of the movies that I purchased through Apple TV are available on the Apple Vision Pro, and a handful of them are in 3D. So it really looks visually stunning to watch Mad Max in 3D or Harry Potter in 3D within this environment. And gaming seems like the most obvious use case here, although there were absolutely zero games that I wanted to play more than 5 minutes as just a demo. They should have come out with more games at launch. But as I mentioned, there's no way this is not going to evolve very quickly. Developers are going to jump in and start utilizing this new way to interact with a computer, because I really don't want to play cut the rope again. Now, what I believe is the killer use case is actually work. The Apple Vision Pro is really good at getting stuff done. Now, I have a MacBook Pro. I open it up, I look right above the screen, and it gives me the option to basically take the screen and put it in the spatial environment. And now I'm looking at my screen. I can use my mouse and my keyboard, except I have this massive screen floating in front of me. I can put other windows all around it, and it's just super easy to use. Mouse and keyboard work perfectly. But again, if you turn on the full immersion, then all of a sudden your keyboard and mouse disappear and it becomes much more difficult. So you kind of either have to sit still and have your keyboard in a stationary place and be able to type without looking at the keys, or you have to leave full immersion off, which is fine. But I truly believe this is going to be a work product as well. I can imagine situations where you're on a plane or you're in a coffee shop, and instead of sitting on this little laptop kind of scrunched down like this, looking at this little screen, you're just comfortable and you have a portable keyboard with you and you're looking up and you have the entire environment to use as your screen. And it works really well. And you really don't even need the mouse at all. With your eyes just looking at where you want to type, that's sufficient. Click, start typing with a keyboard. You cannot get away with not using a keyboard, but you can absolutely get away with not using a mouse. Now let's talk about the actual hardware. Obviously, it is extremely high quality because it's an Apple product. A lot of glass, a lot of unique materials. The Solo band feels really nice in the hand. I mean, even the case is built with like this puffer jacket material on the outside. It's like they thought of everything. But after about an hour of using it, I started to notice the field of view was quite limited. The more I used it, the more I felt like I was looking through binoculars at the world rather than being in the world. And there's this entire black ring around your eyes, which become more and more obvious as you're using it. Now, I read that the Apple Vision Pro field of view is actually less than the Meta Quest, but I haven't tried it myself. I can just imagine down the line, after a few iterations of the Apple Vision Pro, having a completely full field of view. It is going to make the immersion factor so much better. Now let's talk about the battery. A lot of people did not like the fact that there was an external battery that you had to hook up. And to be honest, I didn't mind it at all. It lasts a long time for me. There's no way I'm going to be sitting in the Apple device for 2+ hours without at least plugging it in or taking it off for a little bit. And you can use it indefinitely by simply plugging it in as you're using it. But if you're walking around or you're doing something where you're not able to plug this in, it's plenty of time. And this is actually quite comfortable. I put it in my pocket. There have been a couple times where I've snagged the wire on something, but mostly I haven't noticed it and I like the form factor. My only complaint about the battery is it is a little bit difficult to get in and lock into place in the Apple Vision Pro. Now let's talk about the audio, which was probably the most surprising thing to me. The sound is incredible. It sounds like it is right there with you, and it sounds like you're wearing high-end headphones, even though you're not. It's these little things right here that produce this stunning audio, and it's spatial audio too. So as you move your head, and let's say you're watching a movie in front of you, if I move my head to the right, I hear it out of my left ear. And the audio quality is incredible. This was definitely the thing I was most impressed with. So if you're listening to music, if you're watching a movie, you really don't even need to put headphones on. But once you listen to it above half volume, other people in the room can start to hear what you're listening to. Now, I actually haven't tried it with my Apple headphones, but I want to do that. And I bet it's going to be even more incredible. And now let's talk about the case for a second. The case is extremely high quality. As I mentioned, it has this puffer jacket on it. So if you drop it, it's not just a hard case, but there's this almost like pillow around it, which was ingenious in my opinion. You open it up, this is what it looks like. You put your Apple Vision Pro right here. It gives you this really high quality bag, which I don't even know what you're supposed to put in there. And then your battery straps in right here. Now that was $200. Is it worth $200? Probably not. I already found other cases online that are like $50 and do the job just fine, but I wanted to give this a try, so I bought it. Now I want to talk about some of the quirks because there are a lot. If you have two-factor authentication on any of your accounts, such as like your Google account, it is really hard to log in on your Apple Vision Pro. Here's why. So I actually have two-factor auth with advanced protection on, which means I actually have to use a hardware key anytime I sign into a new device. And it uses either NFC or USB, both of which I cannot do with the Apple Vision Pro. So I had to actually temporarily turn off advanced protection to be able to set everything up. But even with advanced protection off, I still have two-factor on. And so every time I want to log into something, I have to take my phone out, open it up, and confirm. Now, the problem with that is that when I have the Apple Vision Pro on, I can't open my phone easily. I open it, I have to type in the password, and then it opens up. And I know these are minor gripes, but if you have to do this enough times, it gets really annoying. So they definitely need to figure out two-factor auth, and they need to allow hardware keys, because I try to use a hardware key for all of my accounts. I'm paranoid when it comes to security. So the fact that I have to turn off hardware keys, log in, and then turn them back on, it's very tedious. And then another thing, there's a ton of glare. It's weird. It's artificial glare, I assume. Let's say you're in a dark environment in the Apple Vision Pro and you're watching a movie. There's almost like this glare that comes off of a brightly lit movie in a dark environment that shows on the glasses. It's hard to explain. I again assume that this was intentional, but why? It makes it feel like I'm looking through binoculars, which reduces the immersiveness. And with the few things I've talked about already, being able to share the Apple Vision Pro with other people is really tedious. First, the hardware is actually fitted to my face. That's not usually a big deal. Somebody else can put it on just to try it out and they'll be fine. But as the owner, I have to put it on. I have to set up guest mode, which gives me 5 minutes to hand off the device. Then I hand off the device, get somebody seated, get them comfortable, put it on, help them strap it on. Then they have to actually go through the setup process. So they have to look at the dots, they have to click all of them, they have to adjust the eyes. And from the time that they ask me to use it to the time that they're actually using it, it's like 10 minutes. So again, it's just not something that you can just pop on, pop off, give to somebody else for them to use really quickly and hand it back. When you actually want to get into it and use it, it takes a while. And one really weird quirk is that no videos seem to show if you're doing any kind of sharing of your view. So let's say I'm doing a FaceTime call and I want to show off what I'm looking at. It won't actually show a movie that's playing. Or if I'm recording the screen, or if I'm airplaying to my phone so I can see my guest who's using it and help them use it, it won't actually show a movie. And that's a really weird quirk. I kind of understand why they do it, probably for DRM purposes, but it would be nice to actually be able to see the movie through the AirPlay itself. And definitely the most annoying thing is the fact that every time I put it on, all of my screens are gone. So I take the time to set up where I want all of the screens in my environment. And then as soon as I unplug it and then turn it on again and use it later, they're all gone and I have to start all over. Very frustrating. Okay, so I've been talking a lot about the pros and cons. Let me talk about what I really think about it. This is the future. I am certain. As the form factor gets smaller, as the weight reduces, as more apps are being developed for it, the idea of throwing on a small pair of glasses or maybe even contacts in the future is absolutely how I'm envisioning the future. And so Apple really nailed it. It's very clear when you're putting it on what is possible, but what is possible is not available today. And so if you're going to ask me as an average consumer, should I buy this device for $4,000? I would probably say no. But if you're really into technology, you like being on the cutting edge, you have $4,000 of disposable income to throw away, then yeah, it might be worth it. And it's really cool. And when you put it on, you feel like you're in the future. And every possible way I use it, I'm thinking about all the potential it has. One example of that is sports. I'm not really a sports person, but one of the first things I tried to do was watch sports, because I can imagine a situation in which me and a couple buddies sitting in our house with our Apple Vision Pros on are sitting courtside at a basketball game, and we're so close that sweat is dripping on us from the players. I mean, that type of experience is going to be incredible. Concerts are going to be stunning. But again, all of this stuff doesn't really exist today. They're going to invent completely new ways to play video games through this device. But it's also very isolating. When I put this device on, Even though you can kind of see my eyes, not really. There's plenty of reviews about how eyesight works, so I'm not going to dive deep into that. But it's very isolating. I have a family, and when I put that on, I'm not there. Even if I'm using pass through, they're not able to see my eyes. They're not able to interact with me at the same level, and they don't really want me doing that. And we're not really hanging out if I'm wearing this device. And that's actually one weird thing that I've discovered is I actually have to make time for the Apple Vision Pro between not being able to throw it on and be in the environment almost instantly to the fact that when I do put it on, I can't do anything else. It's not like if I just check my phone quickly and then I put it away. And you're probably asking yourself, Matt, this is an AI channel. Why are you reviewing the Apple Vision Pro? Well, there is a reason. I believe this is the perfect vehicle for artificial intelligence. It has an array of cameras and sensors, it has microphones, and it has processors that can easily power local large language models. In fact, let me show you a video of somebody who already got an open source large language model running natively on the Apple Vision Pro. So this is absolutely the perfect device for AI. I can imagine when the form factor gets to something that is comfortable to wear most of the day, you're keeping it on. You can ask questions about what you're looking at. You can have it create things. You can say, okay, I want to buy a new chair. Show me what it'll look like right there. And then all of a sudden, without having to go into apps, it'll just generate the chair that maybe you were shopping for earlier in that day and puts it right in your environment. Or let's say you're trying to learn about the Civil War and you say, show me one of the battles of the Civil War. And all of a sudden, you're completely immersed in this environment that's being generated in nearly real time. And it's very obvious that when Siri gets its big upgrade to use large language models and all of a sudden it's much better, this is going to be such an incredible device because you're going to be able to look at something and say, what is that? And that's it. You don't have to explain what you're looking at. You don't have to take a picture of it. You just look at something and you ask questions about it. All right. So in conclusion, in my opinion, Apple has an absolute winner. When you put the Apple Vision Pro on, you feel like you're in the future. All flaws aside, it feels like the future of computing. Everything from content consumption to work will be changed by this device. And then when they inject artificial intelligence into it, that is going to change the world. If you liked this video, please consider giving a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.